Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Shenanigans Shelf. Today is an episode, I guess, of Shenanigans Shenanigans. It's just my monthly update, what I've been getting up to. Mostly, I guess, mostly to talk about the books that I've read, but I also tend to mention the other things that I've done this month. Not too much like personal stuff or anything like that, but and something actually I've never talked about in one of these updates before is sports, but I'm a big fan of sports. I kind of sometimes wish I wasn't as big of a fan of sports because I feel like I spend a lot of time watching sports when I could be reading and stuff like that. But I like to watch baseball. I love watching the MLB. The Cubs technically, well, did not make the postseason, unfortunately, and the Diamondbacks, as of recording this, may or may not be making it, which is very great, right? I hope they do, but I'm not getting my hopes up for that too much. So we'll see. And then I watched the All Blacks rugby. Rugby and baseball are probably my biggest one, but I like hockey too. And I'll watch whatever. My dad likes cricket, and I'll watch cricket with him and stuff like that. But I watched the All Blacks rugby. This is my Maori All Blacks jersey that I have. I'm pretty sure this is like a fake Chinese one or whatever, but I love it. It's beautiful. And I stayed up till 2 a.m. the other night watching them play against Australia. They played them about a week ago, and they just beat Australia again a couple days ago. They have about 4 or 5 more games this year. They're all on the road, though, and I will definitely be watching those. I love the All Blacks. I got into the All Blacks back in like 2020 because my wife was a rugby fan, and I was, it was COVID. And I kind of got obsessed with rugby since then. By extension, I kind of got obsessed with New Zealand and dove into Maori culture. In fact, I would say it's the culture and country I'm most acquainted with that isn't my country, United States, and then a country that I have more specific ties to. Like I've lived in Ghana, and I have ethnic heritage ties to Ireland, the UK, and Germany, and I'm generally acquainted with all those places, but I would think I'm more acquainted with New Zealand than I am most of those actually. But that might be weird. I don't know. Maybe it's some sort of odd obsession. But I love the All Blacks. And speaking of movies that I've watched this month, and I try to mention this if I've watched any movies I think worth mentioning, is I rewatched Hunt for the Wilder People, which I think is an amazing movie. The first movie I ever watched by Taika Waititi. I've been trying to rewatch. It's been kind of hard to find. Boy, I wanted to rewatch that. I really like that movie as well, also by Taika Waititi. And I watched another movie with Julian Dennison is the actor for the young man in Hunt for the Wilder People, Ricky Baker. And I watched another movie with him that came out last year. It only released in the United States earlier this year, but that's called Uproar, and I loved that movie. That was great. It might be one of my new favorites. Definitely check that out as well. I bought it for like $6 or $7 on Prime Video. I bought it instead of renting it because I was like, this is probably gonna be a good movie. I don't know what it is. I really like Julian Dennison, and this is a way more serious role for him. He's kind of been a meme in Hunt for the Wilder People and in for Deadpool 2, but he did such a great job. I thought he's still pretty. I would kind of consider him relatively close to me in age, but I'm still a good few years older than him. I think he's 21 now. And then this is not a. I started rewatching Brokenwood Mysteries, so keeping the New Zealand theme alive. If there's any Kiwis that watch my channel, I know Mark lives in New Zealand, but if there's any Kiwis that watch my channel, let me know, and then you can know that I'm just a poser or whatever. But either way, for writing this month, I did finish another story actually. So that's 2 months in a row where I've started a story and finished a story, and that's awesome. The one I finished last month was about 8,000 words. So I guess technically it could classify as a novelette or something, but I wrote a short story this month that was about 5,000 words, and I have some ideas for other ones. I actually finished a short story like a couple weeks ago, about halfway into the month, and I haven't started writing anything else. We'll see how that goes. But I'm glad I finished another story. That's only the third story I finished this year, and third story I've essentially finished ever. Actually, there's one more that I wrote maybe a couple years ago, so really just 4 stories. I don't do too much writing, but I like to write. I'm not very fast when it comes to stuff like that, and I don't ever see myself having like a career in writing, you know. But then again, I do this YouTube stuff, and I definitely don't see myself ever having a career with this. Hopefully, somebody watches this and enjoys it, or whatever. And on to my books, though. I finished 10 books this month, which I think is the most I've done all year. I think there was a month where I did 8, and actually I finished 8 last month and only talked about 6 because One of them I read it in August, but I just read it in July. And it's one thing to mention a reread, but one that I literally just finished reading and I just decided to read it again for the sake of understanding. I talked about that book in my myth video. And then I finished my brother's novella, and for some reason I was unaware that you should actually mention these things, so I didn't mention it when I recorded it. But I've done a video on his book now, and it's out, and my parents and my brothers have gotten like their copies that they've ordered, but mine hasn't come yet. I ordered a couple days later than I had wanted to, so it's supposed to be getting here. Um, Actually, the day this video goes live, I should be getting it, which is great. Highly recommend that. I mean, he is my brother, but I also enjoyed myself. It's only a few bucks. If you're interested, it's a sword and sorcery thing. It's not something I typically read, but I definitely enjoyed it. In fact, it makes me kind of want to read more of that stuff. At least if my brother's writing it, I definitely will be. So we'll see. And his name's Liam Hall. We have different last names. I could talk about that at a different time. That's my doing. But either way, books that I have read this month, though. Stop talking about books that I finished last in August. Talk about September. Although this is coming out in October, of course, a couple days into October. Finish the Fantasy of J.R.R. Tolkien. I did a video on this a few weeks ago. Great book. Highly recommend it if you're interested in Tolkien, generally speaking, especially if you're interested in philosophy, and especially if you are into Christian philosophy, which is fair enough. And then I'm not going to talk a lot about these ones, especially the ones I've done videos for. I'm not going to talk too in depth. I did finish The Way of Edan, and I finished it pretty early in September. And I don't know. While when I first started, I was kind of like, I don't really know if I like this too much, but it got better for me as I kept reading, and I ended up kind of liking it. I don't know what my thoughts are in many ways. I feel like I'm a little confused because I kind of liked it, but obviously it's been a few weeks now since I finished it, and I haven't really started the Prophet of Edan. But part of me really wants to, and I think that's like as I've spent a couple weeks away from it now, I've kind of been like, yeah, I do think I enjoyed that a fair amount. I wouldn't say it definitely didn't knock my socks off, and I didn't hate it. But it's I don't know what to think about it in some regards, but enjoyed it enough to now I want to come back. Now, hopefully, I get to the Prophet of Edan in October. I'm not sure it's going to happen that quickly, but I'm sure I'll get to it at some point, and then the Return of Edan as well. I'd like to finish the trilogy, and maybe I'll make a video on that stuff when I get to it. I did not make a video on the Way of Edan because I was kind of hoping maybe at some point I will finish the trilogy. And I like to do videos that are about multiple books if I can. I don't necessarily need to, but anyway. And then the life lessons from the Great Myths. I've actually started this a couple months ago, and I finally finished it. So that rounds out pretty much number 10. This is not actually exactly in order of what I read. The first two were the first two I did read this month, though. And then I read 2 of the Cadfile Chronicles. Just had a video about those as well come out. And that is The Morbid Taste for Bones and A Corpse Too Many. Very cozy medieval mystery. There is obviously still murder, as pretty much every mystery. It seems to have some sort of murder, but very mild compared to some of the other mysteries I read, but I don't read too much in the way of mystery, but still I would recommend them. They're pretty quick reads and enjoyable, and there's a TV show that I'm going to try to watch at some point. Check it out. It was recommended to me in the comments by a couple people. To Tim and Mark recommended it. And there's another book that was recommended by Philip Hall at A Poet Reads to Write. Name of the Rose, I believe. I've heard of that one. It's pretty famous, so I might need to try to read that. Go read some Cadfile Chronicles. Then I read The Fall of Numenor and The Fall of Gondolin. That video came out just a couple days before this one. If you are interested in me just pretty much some very brief thoughts about those 2 books, because I also talk about Bran and Luthien and The Children of Húrin, which I read in August as well. But those were great. It's always good to have some more Tolkien. I guess I read three of the 10 here this month were Tolkien-ish. 2 of them were written by Tolkien, and one of them was about Tolkien. And then I read The Door of No Return by Kwame Alexander. I did a video on this one as well, so you can go check it out. I would say worth a read. If you like Ghanaian stuff, I have a soft spot for Ghanaian culture and whatnot, and I've never read any sort of historical fiction based on Ghanaian culture, so I was interested. I kind of got it on, what was it? Kind of just like an impulse buy, I suppose, and I didn't regret it. It's very fast. It's written for middle schoolers, so you don't have to worry about it wasting your time necessarily, because it won't take up that much time. But also, I think, honestly, I'm already acquainted with Ghanaian culture, having lived there for a couple of years. But if it's a beautiful country, beautiful people. The people were so incredibly nice and amazing to me the whole time I was there. Highly recommend reading that book just because I think it will give you a pretty general idea, which is not a bad people to have a general idea about. And then I also read The Meaning of the Creative Act. Now I have a video coming out just with some brief thoughts on this in just a couple days. It will come out on Saturday. I've mostly been doing videos on Monday and Thursday. I think I've done Monday, Thursday, Saturday my very first week that I started this channel, and I'm doing that this week as well. And I'm gonna try to do that more frequently. I don't want to run out of idea. Like, I mostly just talk about books that I'm reading. I'm gonna try to branch out there and do maybe a little bit more, like give you some list or stuff videos like that. But I don't like to do those too much. I'm gonna do them if I feel like I should. So we'll see on how that goes down. But The Meaning of the Creative Act was super, super interesting. I kind of feel like I need to reread it just to get a better idea. And I think I will expect more videos about this book. I might go ahead and talk more detail about certain chapters that particularly interested me. So I'll probably reread the chapters at least before I make a video on them. But super, super interesting. He's kind of a Christian existentialist. I believe that's probably what he called himself, but he also has a sort of personalism, interest in the personality and the freedom of the necessity that is the freedom of the individual and the person. Very, very interesting. I find him quite insightful, and I would recommend reading Nikolai Berdiev. Go ahead and read some of his stuff. I am currently reading one of his books as well that I'll talk about in a second on the books I'm currently reading. Because the last book that I finished this month is White Noise by Don. I don't know if it's DeLillo or if it's DeLillo, but I finished that book and it was okay. I'm going to do a video on it because it's kind of the start of some sort of series that I'm going to be doing that is, I don't know, it's not going to be a consistent series probably, or at least not super consistent, but yeah, I'll talk more about that later. The book itself was okay. It wasn't something that I probably would have read otherwise if I wasn't doing it for this sort of series thing that I'll talk about, but it wasn't terrible. If anything, I kind of would have liked maybe if it wasn't 325 pages because it almost felt long just because I wasn't that into it. Although 325 normally isn't that long, but either way, it was okay. But on to the books that I'm currently reading. Now, this is in some regards, I guess you could call it my TBR list, what I'm expecting to read in October. Okay, first of all, also, it does not feel like October. I moved to Arizona on June 1st, and I've lived in Arizona before, in a part of Arizona that was still pretty hot, but not nearly as hot as it is here in Yuma County. Yuma County is so freaking hot. There were a few days in September where it was like the highs were in the 90s, and it's been back up in the hundreds. Today, the high is like 108 degrees or something again, and the 10-day forecast still has it being above 100 for every single day, and I'm pretty annoyed, to be honest. I don't need it to be 60 and 70 degrees like it is in the morning. I would like it to be, but can we be back and down in the 90s, please? Like, I'd really appreciate it. This is a huge snowbird area for that reason, because my understanding is during like Christmas time, it's going to be like in the 70s, and it's going to feel fantastic. We'll see. So the books I'm currently reading, and kind of my TBR, but they already are being read, and I should hopefully be finishing these all in October. One is The Makers of Scotland. I'm reading this with my buddy Sean. We're reading it together about 2 chapters at a time, so I think we'll finish in just a couple of weeks. 2.5 weeks, it looks like we'll be finishing. And I might try to get him on to do a video with me, because I mean, kind of, why not? He doesn't have a booktube channel or anything like that, but he's a really nice guy. We haven't been friends for super long, but he's a great guy. Easily one of my better friends already. And so Makers of Scotland is an okay book though, but I'll talk more about it. I'm not like, it's been kind of interesting, but I'm not like mind-blowing inspiration or anything like that. Another book I'm reading it on, if I don't hold up the book, you can assume that I heard it through audiobook or most likely on ebook and Kindle. Tikanga Maori is Tikanga pretty much means customs, so Maori customs, Maori customs. I'm reading that. It's by Harini Mokomid. I've read 2 books by Harini Mokomid few years ago when I was first getting my first kick on Maori culture, and I read Te Maori, which is about that huge, very awesome exhibit that started 1981 through 84 going through the U.S. and stuff like that. And I need to reread that. I don't have a copy with me. I have it back in storage, but hopefully I can get that. Hopefully everything out of storage relatively soon, and I'll give you guys perhaps a tour of all my stuff when that happens. Because for right now, it's really just these two shelves. But I have a lot more. I have about 4 or 5 bookshelves worth of other things that some of you may care about. I suppose some people like those bookshelf tours. I enjoy them myself. But Tikanga Mari is one I'm reading by Hirini Mokomi. The other one was Tetoi Whakairo, which is like Maori carving. And I have a general understanding of how Maori words are pronounced. Te reo Maori words are pronounced, the language. But I definitely do not speak it. So feel free to correct me. It seems to be a relatively pretty nuanced language, especially with different dialects from different areas of the country or different iwis and stuff. But another book I am reading is actually another Maori book, Nakete Mataranga. Mataranga is pretty much just knowledge, Maori knowledge. I'm actually almost done with that one as well. I'm almost done with both of those. And that one is pretty much different chapters by different Maori scholars in different fields, different disciplines. I think they all live in New Zealand, or at least they're of course all from New Zealand. It's been super interesting, actually. I have one book that I guess I could say on my TBR, but by a guy who works at the University of Canterbury in Christchurch. It's right over here, actually. I'll show it to you. That I am hoping to read in October, but we'll see. But that I'm reading The Hobbit. It's been a few years since I've read The Hobbit. I'm reading it. I'm currently reading it to my children, so I'm reading it very slowly. In fact, I'm not confident that we're gonna finish in October, but we'll see. Hopefully we do, because we did start it in September. And then reading The Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson, book 4 is from my archive, kind of in preparation for Wind and Truth coming out in December, but I don't know if I'm gonna read Wind and Truth right when it comes out. I don't have the physical copies for Oathbringer or Rhythm of War, which I like to have. I do have physical copies for Way of Kings and Words of Radiance, and it's not. Rhythm of War hasn't pulled me in so much. Oathbringer didn't either in many ways by comparison. Rhythm of War, I'm not super far into it. I still have a good amount to go, but I should hopefully be finishing that in October. And on top of that, I'm reading Spirit and Reality, another book by Nikolai Berdiev. There are other books by Berdiev I would like to read, but this is one I had a copy of because I bought it in anticipation of wanting to read more of his stuff, and I found a copy for cheap. That's pretty much me. I think I crammed a good amount. This video is not too long. I crammed a good amount into there, so let me know your thoughts. Please feel free to like and subscribe, and your thoughts of all the books that I have read, or am currently reading. What's the best, pretty much? Or let me know what you've read, what you recommend, perhaps in relation. I should say I'm going to be reading Gene Wolfe for the first time. I was planning on reading the Book of the New Sun, the 4 books. They're pretty short, relatively short. But I'm reading The Wizard Knight because I was invited, I suppose, to do a buddy read with T from Erudite Adventure, my brother Liam, Britton from Anoki Dude. I don't know if anyone else is joining, but I got a copy of that, which should also be arriving on Thursday, the day this video comes out, with my copy of my brother's novella. And so that's Gene Wolfe. It's pretty much 2 books. I bought it at 2-in-1, so it's about 900 pages or something like that. The Knight is the first one, so I'll be reading The Knight in October, and then probably should be reading The Wizard. I believe we're doing that just in November. So we'll see how it goes. So in many ways, I kind of made this a TBR video without necessarily wanting to call it a TBR. Maybe I'll call it a TBR on the title because it has practically become that. Although there are hopefully going to be some other books that I read. I don't know if I'm going to read 10 books again. I mean, I'm in the middle of 6 books, and I have that other one I haven't started that I pretty much need to read, and that would be 7 that I finish in October. I wouldn't be against reading 10 books or even more in October, but that's never happened before. And I have quite a bit of free time currently, so if it does happen, hopefully it doesn't happen in November because I would like to not have such free time. But we'll see. Either way, if you made it this far, again, please feel free to like and subscribe, leave a comment. I greatly appreciate it. I will try to do 3 videos a week when possible, but I just don't know how possible that's going to be. And yeah, either way, have a good one. I'll see you guys next time.